You've touched it today. Maybe you didn't think twice about it. Folded it into a wallet, slid it across a counter, let it disappear into a cash register. But that thing in your hand, that small rectangle of cotton and linen, is one of the most fought over objects on Earth. People have gone to prison for trying to copy it. Governments have redesigned it in secret. Entire careers of engineers, chemists, printers, and criminals have been built around 6 inches of paper. This is the story of American currency. Not what it buys, what it is, and the war that's been fought, quietly, for over a century to protect it. Let's start with what most people never notice. Pick up a $100 bill and tilt it. Watch the number in the corner. It shifts color, copper to green, like it's alive under the light. That's not decoration. That's a message written for machines and forgers, not for you. Look closer, and there's a thread running through the paper itself, not printed on it, but woven into it, buried in the fibers before the bill was even shaped. It glows under ultraviolet light, a different color for every denomination, invisible until you know how to look. Hold it up, and a face appears in the blank space beside Franklin's portrait, a second, fainter Franklin, visible only when light passes through the paper. That's a watermark, and it's nearly impossible to replicate with a printer, because it isn't printed at all. It's built into the density of the paper fibers themselves. And if you had a magnifying glass, a strong one, you'd find microprinting so small that most consumer scanners simply blur it into a smudge. Words hidden in the folds of a collar, the lines of a border, the fine print around a portrait. None of this is an accident. None of it is decorative. Every single feature on a U.S. bill exists because, at some point, someone tried to fake it, and someone else had to design a countermeasure. This is currency as armor. And to understand why it looks this way, we have to go back to why it needed armor in the first place. In the 1860s, during the Civil War, it's estimated that as much as a third of all U.S. currency in circulation was counterfeit. A third. The paper money system was so young, so poorly defended, that fake bills weren't the exception. They were nearly the norm. That crisis is the reason the U.S. Secret Service exists at all. Most people think it was created to protect presidents. It wasn't. In 1865, its first and only job was to hunt counterfeiters. For the next 100 years, the battle stayed relatively quiet. Counterfeiting required a printing press, engraving skill, specialized ink, a real craft, practiced by a small number of serious criminals. Then, in the 1990s, everything changed. Color copiers got cheap. Home computers got powerful. Suddenly, counterfeiting wasn't a criminal trade. It was something a teenager could attempt in a garage. The Treasury's response was complete redesign. Bigger, off-center portraits, color-shifting ink, watermarks, security threads. It was the first major overhaul of American currency in almost 70 years, and it was a direct, defensive reaction to a threat nobody had anticipated, the desktop printer. But the most fascinating chapter of this war isn't about amateurs. It's about a nation-state. Starting in the 1990s, U.S. investigators began finding $100 bills of extraordinary quality, so precise that even experts struggled to identify them as fake. They called them super dollars. The paper was nearly perfect. The engraving was nearly perfect. Some experts believed the operation required equipment and materials that only a government could access. The suspected source was North Korea, though the accusation has never been fully proven in open court. And to this day, it remains one of the most disputed cases in modern currency history. Whoever was behind it, the message was clear. Counterfeiting American currency was no longer a crime committed by individuals. It had become an act with the sophistication of a state, which meant the countermeasures had to evolve too. Step back from the security features for a moment and look at the people on these bills, because their presence isn't as simple as it seems. Take Andrew Jackson on the 20. Jackson spent much of his political career fighting against a national bank. He believed centralized paper currency was dangerous, even corrupt. And yet for generations, his face has been printed on the very system he distrusted. It's one of history's stranger ironies, hiding in plain sight in millions of wallets. Or take Alexander Hamilton on the 10. Unlike nearly every other face on U.S. currency, Hamilton never served as president. He earned his place for a different reason. He built the financial architecture of the young United States almost single-handedly as its first Treasury Secretary. In a strange way, the $10 bill honors the man who invented the idea of American money. And then there's the $2 bill, Thomas Jefferson's face, technically still in print, technically still legal tender, and yet so rarely seen that some cashiers, when handed one, assume it's fake. It's real. It's just been pushed to the margins of circulation, a ghost denomination that refuses to fully disappear. These aren't random choices. They're a kind of quiet propaganda, a story America tells about itself every time money changes hands. Independence, finance, union, democracy. You've been reading that story your whole life. You just never noticed the author. Here's where the story gets personal. Because somewhere, right now, someone is going to open their wallet, glance at a crumpled bill they were about to spend on coffee, and realize it's worth thousands of dollars. It happens because the system, for all its precision, isn't perfect. Sometimes a printing press misaligns, and a bill comes out with the front and back slightly offset, a misprint, and collectors will pay serious money for one. Sometimes ink is missing entirely from a section of the note. Sometimes a bill is folded before it's cut and unfolds into something that looks like nothing else in circulation. And then there are the serial numbers, the 8-digit code stamped on every bill, meant simply to track it. Except collectors have turned that number into its own economy, a serial number that reads 00000001, one with every digit the same. A ladder counting perfectly upward, 12, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A star printed after the number, marking it as a replacement for a bill that was damaged during production and therefore printed in far smaller numbers than ordinary currency. None of these bills look unusual to the untrained eye. They spend exactly like every other bill in your pocket, which is exactly why people keep finding them by accident, in bank rolls, in register drawers, in the folded corner of a wallet that hasn't been cleaned out in a year. It's a strange kind of lottery, one where the ticket is already in your hand, and you don't know it. So the next time a bill passes through your hands, take 1 extra second before it disappears into a register or a pocket. Tilt it, hold it to the light. Look for the thread, the watermark, the number, because that ordinary piece of paper carries 160 years of war behind it. A war fought in ink and fiber and law, between the people who make trust and the people who try to steal it. And for one more moment before it moves on to its next hand, it's yours.